Really excited to have Joe DeMax here from Central Control. We've been talking about having Joe DeMax on, I think, for 2 or 3 years. And we almost had him scheduled in the fall, and then we had a changeover on our side. And so, Central Control, and I'll let Joe explain it a little bit more, but Central Control is really, I don't know how to say it. I was trying to figure out, it's very core to what we do. It's central to what we do. There's a lot of folks inside of office hours that are using Central Control, and Joe DeMax, we're very appreciative of the hard work that he's done to build this connection between many different pieces of hardware to allow us to run our shows. Joe, welcome to the show. Oh, can't hear you.
I'll unmute myself. Delighted to be here finally. And yes, a long time coming. I have managed to make it on some of the lives from trade shows, but first time on the actual show.
Yeah, absolutely. We now have a whole hour for you. So it's now. Tell us a little bit about how did you, because you come from video production. So how did you decide you needed to build Central Control?
Yeah, certainly. I had some experience in software development, but I was also doing video production, and I would find myself writing these little tools to do specific tasks. Like I had an old NewTek control surface and I wanted to run vMix with it. I wanted to connect a Stream Deck to my TriCaster, and I built these tools, small tools. And then, of course, the requests come in, well, can I now use the NewTek panel with a Blackmagic switcher, or can I use a Stream Deck with X, Y, and Z? And I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be useful instead of all these separate little pieces, which is, of course, a nightmare to keep tabs on multiple pieces of software and keep them all updated? What if we built this into one modular application that would maybe let you connect any of these to anything else in the program?
So it's really an abstraction layer of just like we're going to, all the devices that might control something go into it, all the devices that need to be controlled. And you do manage also control between the two, right? I mean, you can have different devices talking to each other without those control interfaces as well.
Yes, yeah. There's also a trigger system which lets you essentially make something on B device happen when an event happens on A, and there's some simple like if else, like okay, if the input number is equal to 1, do this, or if the input name contains something, then execute this list of actions. So yes, there's also, you don't necessarily even need any kind of control surface to use this.
Now, what are the biggest challenges to making this work?
It is, as you kind of alluded to, it is that abstraction layer. It's like, how do we make it so any button is just considered a button, and like any slider is a fader, and then of course you've got to, as well as getting the control to whatever you're trying to control, you've got to also take the information back from that device. So what source is on program, what source is on preview, and get that back to the control surface in some kind of meaningful way. Because this isn't one directional. This has got, it's got to be full bidirectional. You've got to have full feedback, and that's what anyone in any video professional needs. You need to look at your surface and know what's going on.
Now, and when did you start building Central Control properly?
It was the very, very early days of the pandemic. And I just started to build this tool for myself, as I kind of felt that a demand for my services in video production might be about to grow a little bit. And right. I thought now's probably a great time to have this kind of tool in my back pocket. And because it was so modular, I just kept adding and adding to it as I needed different pieces for the productions I was working on.
How does Core work?
Of course. So we historically have had a Windows application, Windows only. And then the development of Core was kind of a bit of an inside story to it. Was I spent a weekend trying to see, after being nagged for many, many years by the Mac crowd, can we have a Mac version, or can I run this on Linux? And I thought to myself, I'll give this a few days, and I'll see if I can build the most simple, like command console version of Central Control, no UI, and get something really simple going, like a button on an xKeys, a few buttons on an xKeys to control vMix. If that turns out to be possible, and it was, I would then invest the time to rewrite a user interface that could then work on all these other platforms. And that's kind of how we find ourselves with Core today, which is a version of central control. Kind of the core functionality. It's not got some of the stuff that's in the Windows version, which is now known as Studio, but it's the core functionality of let's connect anything to anything else.
What doesn't it have that is in the larger version?
Yeah, sure. So Studio, as it's now known, kind of, because it was modular and I needed these things, it kind of grew to have stuff like a teleprompter, NDI output, time code input. There's a system where you can take in an NDI source and stream it to a web browser. There's a basic rundown system in there. There's kind of stuff like that that isn't in Core, and
so
but
all the communication between the devices is there. These are added functions, and this is also the challenge. With I think it's the big advantage and also the challenge for developers. If you're in the industry, the advantage is you're building something that is applicable to the industry because you need it. So you're kind of really. I mean, I think there's the hard part is a lot of times people come with a business model, but they've never done it, and they don't know what is necessary and what isn't. And so so you're really building and fixing your own problems. The other challenge though is you keep fixing problems. Like once you have the hooks, you go, well, I can add this because it's something I need, and you don't know if anybody else needs it or not, but you might as well put it in there. And is that kind of a constant challenge for you to figure out what goes into the product?
Yeah, it is. And it's not all based on what do I want for myself. We've got a big Facebook user group, and a lot of the development ideas come straight out of there. Right. But I do like to think that some of the functionality that has been very well received by the user base is because it comes, like, I'm not just developing software. Like I'm doing productions day in, day out. And I think, knowing what's going on and having kind of a hand in that area just really helps to come up with the solutions to the problems because you're living it.
I'm going to try to come back and have you do a little demo for us, but we've got a couple questions coming in, so we're just going to we're going to throw a couple questions at you right now. Let's go to the first question.
George E. Kennedy Jr. in Washington, D.C. asks, can Central Control Core be used alongside Companion, and what would the transition be like if one decides to go Core full time?
Yeah, superb question. So Companion, for those that don't know, you all know, has a lot more modules because it is an open source product. There's loads of people contributing to that. But a lot of people use both. And to that end, there is a Companion module in Central Control where you can essentially push Companion buttons from Central Control. So if you've got some stuff that's already built in the Companion world, and then you decide that you've got your whatever control surface, maybe it's a new tech panel all built out in Central Control, but you really need some actions that you've already set up, maybe something quite complicated, even like multi-step in Companion, you can just then map that essentially to a button in Central Control and push buttons straight in Companion. If you wanted to move over full time, I won't pretend otherwise. It is essentially rebuilding. There's no kind of import functionality from Companion because they are so, I guess, structurally different. But we like to make the mapping very easy, and stuff like we map the feedback automatically. So so mapping out, as I'm sure Jeff alluded to in the first hour, I'd heard a bit of it. You can go from having nothing mapped on a controller to everything set up in 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, one of the things that jumped out at me was one of Joe's videos that he had done where it solved a problem where he made life super easy for us, because in some of these translations, you have to program all these buttons. And our problem was that we needed a physical fader in vMix. And so this is the X touch. And when I move this fader here locally, it moves on 3 different continents when we're doing our cloud productions. And even the time code from the playout comes across, and it's just MIDI. So when I hook it up and I'm running Core, actually I'm running the full version for the cloud productions. I bought a license like 2 years ago. It gives you that control and that translation. So when you think about this, think about you take a device and you're basically translating it. That's the way I like to think of it. And a bunch of these are are here in the back end.
And Joe, is that what you're doing? You're basically converting everything to an intermediate layer that then you can then remap, and then so it's just a matter of you have this center layer, and you've got to figure out how how to read all this stuff. It gets in here and gets processed and repatched, and then you just talk about how to send it back to folks. Is that basically how that works?
Yeah. Yeah. So we take everything on a control surface, and basically, if you like, change it. We just look at it as, okay, buttons, faders, encoders, axes. So an axis could be a joystick, or it could be a pitch bend wheel. And then display. So like, as Guy was just saying, he displays his time code on the displays of the X touch there. And then internally, that all gets sorted out. But all you, as the user programming it, have to think about is those like 5 different control types, and the rest is kind of done for you.
Are you able to show us a little bit of the interface and the patching?
Of course. So I am sharing my screen. I believe you've got it. There we go. I see it. So this is Core, and this is running on I believe it's an M2 Mac Mini. And as you can see, this is essentially the interface that you see when you open the program. Because what we've done is, to keep it as cross-platform compatible as we can, we've moved the interface to a web user interface. And if I pull up the Windows applications, as you can see over the top here, it's quite a faithful recreation of that. So if you've ever used Central Control recently, like it shouldn't be any problem. And I guess I'll show you how to do a very simple setup. So I've already got a bit of a simple project going here. I've got a Stream Deck. I've got an xKeys 124 T-bar that's just here on my desk. I don't know if you can see that. And I've got a few other controllers on my desk, as I always do. Always total chaos here. So what have I got?
We're part of your clan here. Like, if you look at all of our desks, it's just this mass of monitors and interfaces. Yeah.
Never enough buttons, seemingly.
Absolutely.
So what have I got? I've got OBS Studio, and that's running on my Windows machine. And that switcher I just did to the PTZ camera was actually just done through here. I've got an Elgato key light, so if I choose, I can plunge myself into darkness. I've just got 2 buttons to turn that on and off. And that's, this is always running on this Mac Mini, so it's actually quite nice to not have to dig into the Elgato app and wonder if the Wi-Fi is still working. I've got my PTZ Optics Move 4K, which is just up in the corner. You saw the angle from that. And then I've just got some presets on my controller so I can show like a tight version of the Stream Deck. And then the last module I've currently got in this project, it was very kindly lent to me by Jeff. He says it's his favorite switcher, but he could let it go for a day. It's Blackmagic ATEM Mini Extreme.
And you have a super source animator. Sorry,
yes.
we're laughing because Jeff is not. I didn't even know Jeff had an ATEM. So it was just like, oh yeah. So it's yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So the super source animator was a feature that kind of had to make it over to Core because it's such a fan favorite, if you like. So if I click this button, it'll open the super source animator window, and you'll see I've already got one preset. And the way this system works is I've got the ATEM software open here as well. So I'm sure this is all very familiar. So I'm gonna make a preset here using one of their built-in layouts. And then I'm simply going to click Add Preset and click OK. I could name it if I wanted to. And then what that essentially does is it's created a snapshot of that input in its current state. And why not? For good measure, we can do one more. We'll do that. And then I'll click Add Preset one more time. And now I've got a few different presets I can use. I can map these to a button. I can map it to a Stream Deck. The Stream Deck can even show me the little thumbnail view of it. And once I've got all my presets built out, I actually can I've got a few different transitional effects I can use to get between them. So like a smooth, a cut if I want, linear, so very linear motion.
And is the smooth something that has like ease in, ease out? Is that kind of a...
That's exactly what it is, yeah. And then I can just animate between them using the settings I've got here. And it's something that's missing on the the switcher itself is the super source thing is superb.
It just
but
is the craziest. It's the craziest thing for them to have all these switchers out there and the ability to animate, but no interface to actually do it. I mean, a lot of us use Mix Effect Pro, if we're just doing just to talk to it. And the number one reason, if you ask anybody who has Mix Effect Pro, they're like, oh, animating the super sources. That's why you have it. So this will do those animations, and you have those presets. Are you able to manipulate them here, or do you always manipulate them in the ATEM?
It's always in the ATEM software. Think of this as taking a snapshot of the current state rather than a way to. There was just no real point to reinventing, at least in my view, the whole interface to create them. But I know Mix Effect Pro does a superb job of that.
Yeah. Oh, you could do it. You could theoretically work with Mix Effect Pro in that sense, where you can kind of move those things around and then have it then here and when Guy's talking about this, so you can have this set up inside of central control, and it's just an IP at that point. So it can be, if you have a VPN, what Guy's controlling or what anybody's controlling can be anywhere in the world. Yeah,
you could have someone somewhere in the world dedicated to just working the super source if you chose. Yeah,
absolutely. That's fantastic. And are you able to? Do you have any interface builder tools, or is it mostly building the connections between the hardware?
On the Windows version, there is a tool called Web Panel, which lets you build like a basic button grid, multiple grids, and then assign those buttons you've created to functions. We're looking to completely rebuild that and add stuff like faders and maybe some preview monitors from our Connect tool, and that will be on both platforms when it does eventually return, if you like.
That's great. Now, if I want to connect a Stream Deck input to these super sources, how do I do that inside of your software?
Yeah. So I can show you that right now. So I've got, I believe I've got a Stream Deck here. I do. So the first thing I'm going to do is assign the buttons to a function. And the function in this case, so this is our mapping window. This is where you do all your control assignment, set your feedback settings, your button colors and whatnot. And this drop down here is what lets me select, well, what's the target basically? Like this is the Stream Deck's the source, but what's the target? So I'm going to click Jeff's ATEM, and then I am going to set super source 1 preset because I've only got 1 on this Mini Extreme. And then you can see I've got my 3 presets here. And I believe if I just right click these, I can actually assign this really quickly to all of them. I'll assign those 2. And then in theory, yep, it assigned it. It looks like I didn't select that last box. So I'm going to do it manually. Click this plus button. And now these buttons all have super sources associated. And then if I wish to display the thumbnail, and full disclosure, I haven't tried this in. You can't do that. I guess that's a Windows only for now to show the actual thumbnail. But I don't see a reason we couldn't do it. So I guess that's my job after the show. But regardless, in theory now, if I press those buttons, I don't have, unfortunately, a feed from the ATEM, and it's actually got no inputs attached. But you can probably see if I start pressing these buttons, you can see probably just about make out that
I can see that. You can see that the positions are changing. There's not much to change there, but you can see that it's animating between the two. So it's pretty quick. We've got a couple more questions rolling in. Let's go to the next question.
Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas asks, is there a way to extend module support ourselves? Example, add mute group on off control to the X32 module.
Good question. So right now, there's no way to edit the plugins. There's no plugin SDK just yet. It's something of great interest. Getting that done in the right way is critical because you don't want one bug in a module to take down your whole application. And to an end user that's using a plugin, say, written by someone else, they're not going to know why the whole thing went down. So that's one of the reasons we don't do that just yet. I will say, if there is missing functionality in that module specifically, there is actually a way to just send out, I believe, any OSC message that you want. So you can you can pretty much make it do anything in theory.
And so it does support, what other protocols does it support? It supports OSC and what else?
Yeah, of course. So we have, as well as like our modules for like defined surfaces, so like xKeys, a bunch of MIDI controllers, Stream Deck, like you said, there is this section here.
If we can cut
called,
this for folks that are back end there.
So there is this section here. This is just generic modules that do like, stuff like ArtNet input, ArtNet output. And we actually have a customer that uses this as quite a simple like ArtNet splitter and router. So they say, okay, universe 1, you're going to be unicast to all 5 universes on this node over there. And, you can then translate the ArtNet to MIDI if you choose. And actually, interestingly enough, probably worth talking about, we had a customer who was, I believe they were doing the Harry Styles World Tour. And they had their whole production, their switcher, it was an ATEM switcher, time-coded on the lighting console. So it was the same cuts every night. And they told me that the way that they programmed it was by using little football figures on like a recreation of the stage they'd made. And focused all the cameras on those.
At least how you get started.
I begged them for photos of that, like programming set, because I would have loved to have seen this.
It's funny. I guess you could do it that way physically. One of the things that we started doing for some of the stage work that I did was pre-visualizing it all in Unreal Engine, because it'll take the DMX. You can have all the lights in there. You can have a lot of the bits and pieces and kind of flow through that process. That's great. And then you can take inside of this, you're adding these devices. This also means you can cross-pollinate between OSC to DMX or DMX to, all of those things can be, you can use those commands. It's almost like it's a translator between them, Take this
you could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you could do a very simple, like I've just added 2 modules here. I've added ArtNet input and generic MIDI. If I wanted, I could just take the value of, say, channel 1, and I could, send it out as a MIDI control change on whatever MIDI control change I wish. And yeah, you can use this as a very effective protocol, digital glue translator tool, if nothing else, if you like.
Yeah, good, Jeff.
I was going to say that one of the reasons I'm such a big user of the whole central control ecosystem that I've got several copies of now is because of those changes in the modules. Peter, you and I speak the same language. We're right outside of Houston, but Joe does understand what we talk about whenever we need something at the last minute, and he's come through a couple different times whenever we needed, hey, I need this specific feature to have in this module. And that's one of the great things of working with them is they listen to the users that are in the trenches and need the functionality.
Next question.
George E. Kennedy Jr. in Washington, D.C. asks, most of the modules for apps I use daily are in core, but a few core triggers I use are missing, Mitti and Millumin. What is the best way to request them to be added?
Yeah, sure. So you can send an email or send a request via the contact form. But the way I really like to see it done is we've got quite a big Facebook user group. I think it's just about to tick over 3,000 members now, which is great because it kind of becomes more collaborative. Someone says, well, they want this trigger. And then someone else will say, yeah, but what about this one? And it becomes kind of a team effort to like decide, okay, what's the most important? What do we need to integrate in? But George, you've got my contact details anyway, so you're always welcome to request whatever you need.
Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle asking, can you tell us about the future of using NDI Bridge with Core?
Oh yes, I can.
It's a little what we hear in the U.S. call softball. so anyway, yeah, go ahead.
So this is not out yet. It was a announcement back at NAB, and it's an interesting use of NDI. So I've got all these controllers. We're mostly interested right now in the controller modules like the Stream Deck, and this xKeys 124T bar right now. So I've got a central control, a beta build running on my Windows machine, and I've got two modules added here that are of importance. One is a Stream Deck. Now you'll notice I don't actually, if I click this drop down to select my Stream Deck, I don't have one plugged in. There's no USB cable here. But I also have this receiver module, and you can see it's picking up some NDI sources from my Mac Mini where I do have this stuff plugged in. So I'm going to select the Stream Deck, and then I'm going to select as the target device the Stream Deck in this project on Windows. And this essentially becomes like a surrogate. This is where I'm going to do all my mapping, assignment, feedback settings. And I like to think of this, if I enable this, you'll see it goes purple to indicate it's remote. I like to think of this as we're extending the USB cable however far you like, especially if you're using NDI Bridge, over NDI. So if I start pressing buttons now, and I must stress this is plugged into the Mac Mini, not into Windows. We saw we didn't have any here. But if I start pressing these buttons, you'll see over NDI, we've now got that control data coming in, and I can even start setting my some text on the button. So done some text there. I will just do a little zoom in on the PTZ. I should have left it on the
no
desk.
VPN, just an NDI bridge, and I could have this controlling from around the world. It's
and there you go. There's
USB cable.
As long as you like. There's the text I set. So a very good use of this might be if you were using our teleprompter, which I conveniently for you already have set up here. I've got the teleprompter set up. And what I want to do is, let's say this Mac Mini is on the other side of the room, and I just need to give someone, some kind of operator, some control of the teleprompter. And it's just not, we can't be running this USB cable. People trip over it, and we don't have one that's 200 meters long. So I'm just going to go into this, click the controls button for this Stream Deck. Very similar window to what you saw in the web version. I'll select my teleprompter, and I'm just going to do a very simple stop button here. We'll do a play button here. And now as I press the button on the Stream Deck, I'll hit play. You can see there it is rolling along. And I think the most important part about this is when you've got cloud workflows in play. You've maybe got an NDI bridge already set up in the cloud. You can just, someone on an operator at TD would just need, say, central control core, their control surfaces, and then they can connect into this. And the beauty of it is because all the mapping is done on the system that's receiving the NDI, if you like. The engineer can be like managing all their buttons and setting it all up for them. And all they need to really do is worry about punching the buttons.
That's great.
Huge.
Yeah. And not having to deal with all the other bits and pieces that are required to make that happen. It's really interesting. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York asks, one of the things that makes the corporation shy away from open source solutions, what kind of support and resources are provided by Sistine?
That would be a reference to the parent company, which is Sistine Control Systems, for those that don't know. We also have community support, just like open source projects mentioned there. But we also have direct email support, and for like bigger corporate clients, we've offered support packages where a response within a certain time frame is assured, because they're working on mission critical stuff, and they can't use a tool unless they have that agreement in place.
That's great. Next question.
Next one's for me. I noticed you support Soundcraft UI series digital mixers for Core. I have a UI 24R. Is there any additional functionality over the stock web interface that could be valuable?
That's an interesting one. I mean, there's, if I was to be completely honest, there's less functionality in our module, because it's more about, having tactile control over the things that you really need tactile control over, like mute buttons, the channel faders. But I guess the value add is that you can then start using it with triggers. So maybe you could set up some basic audio, follow video from your video switcher to control the mutes on that desk. You could automate stuff in our timeline. You could even use the teleprompt as triggers to mute and unmute the talent's microphone. So there's less functionality than the web UI, but the functionality we do have, I guess, is accessible in a maybe a more useful way for your scenario.
Well, and the network effect, right? I mean, the functionality is not so much you could do more with this interface, but that you could tie this interface to other things. Is the real value, I think. Next question.
Next question is from Guy Cochran in Seattle. How has Jeff used central control in a real-world production?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Every week, multiple days a week, we're using central control to connect between us and a company called Sage Studios in Charleston. So we're here based in Texas, and we control their studio switcher. We control their studio video, playbacks. We have Q labs that we're triggering off of it. We'll probably have it in total, I think probably 8 different devices that we're touching in their studios, and we're using central control here locally in order to do that. And it's flawless, just works perfectly. So we're using this is why this one's all marked up, this disk controller, in place of the, because they're a Blackmagic based switcher there. They have a Constellation 4K, so we're using this small controller to be able to be their backup for whenever their user, their TD that's there on site, if he needs to step away, we can just immediately just reach up and start switching the show just as if we're sitting there. So it's been flawless for us.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, is central control designed more for pressing buttons, i.e. MIDI/OSC event X trigger actions, or can it handle variable controls like a MIDI CC controlling brightness or a dissolve?
Both is the simple answer. I mean, I can show you if you like how quick it would be to assign a. I've got this. It's a very small form factor, like video switcher control surface. This is a product from our US distributor. If I want the slider bar here to control, say, the fader bar, the T bar on the ATEM, all I need to do is I'll find this. I know what it's called. I'm just going to search for that module. It's the CS80A. Add it to my production here. I've got the MIDI in and out set. So this has a module for it where all the controls are defined, but you could do the exact same thing with the generic MIDI module if it wasn't already defined. I'm going to enable this module. Come here. We will say fader because it's a T-bar is essentially a fader. It's a linear control, right? And then we'll go to Jeff's ATEM and we will just map the T-bar, click the plus button. And now I've done that. We'll pull up our ATEM panel again. Now, as you can see, just like that, I've mapped it to the dissolve on the switcher, the T-bar.
Can you do math? Math calculations in the middle of a translation? So you're connecting this to this. Can you do any kind of operation like multiply it by this or subtract it by this?
There is, I wouldn't call it math, but there are like intermediary modules you can use. So there's like a fader limiting module where you can specify the range. And there's also one, I think it's called relative faders. It's kind of cool. You can use like some kind of axis control to like essentially change the range of the fader as you move the axis. So there is some of that. It's not done with math. It's done by you essentially put another module in the middle of the source and the destination, if you like.
Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway asks, how is central control integrated in xKeys controllers? Yeah,
it's an excellent question. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that xKeys PI Engineering are probably our closest partner. Work with them a lot to support pretty much every xKeys on the market today. And we're always exhibiting with them at trade shows. In addition to that, we are going to be launching a product with them, and this was kind of the whole impetus for Core to exist. which is a new xKeys controller. It's part of their rack series. It's extremely modular. You can add and remove the pieces you want. So you can add a T-bar, add a jog wheel, all of that. But there is a small single board computer in that unit. So you will turn it on. You log in via, that's why we've got a web UI. It's because this machine's headless. You've got no mouse and keyboard or monitor to be plugging into it. You log in, you do all your control assignment, and then you've essentially got a self-contained central controller that has pretty much everything you see on this Mac version. And that should be coming in the next month or so.
Do you integrate with the trackball, the xKey trackball?
It's it's one of the ones we don't, because
it's complicated. I was like, how does he do that? Like, how would he do that? So
it also originally wasn't a PI product. I believe they bought that out, so it's a bit different to the rest of their equipment. But we do we even do their new hand wheel controller, which is it's like a big encoder with a little thing on the top, and you can spin it around. It's good fun.
One of my favorite ones for xKeys is the contact closure little hub. You know, I don't know if they even still make it anymore, but I used to use it a lot.
Oh yeah,
where you can just put buttons anywhere you need them. So you have a button that just hits, and we've used those for things like I give somebody a button that if they push that button, it'll clear them out. You have a VIP. And just says, I want to have control over being able to hit something. I don't want to give them a control interface. I just want to give them a big red button. Like if you're uncomfortable, you can hit the button. So no one's actually ever hit the button during production, but it makes them feel better. Next question.
Next question's for me. Does Core support DMX control, and is there a cloud-based fixture system where new hardware is frequently added? Looking for a reason to dump my Luminair subscription and unify control of various devices in one app.
Yeah, so the DMX input and output modules are really working with the DMX on closer to the protocol level than your lighting desk or lighting application, where everything's kind of abstracted into fixtures. You can use the DMX output modules to achieve very simple controls, like I move a fader up and down and it controls a single dimmer. But really, those are more so used for those, especially the output module mainly exists for the purpose of protocol translation rather than the idea being you send that control straight to the lighting fixture, because it's, if you were to try and do what Luminair does in central control without any of that nice abstraction and effects generators, I'd say it'd be quite an unpleasant experience to try and use it as a lighting console for nothing more than simple dimmer changes.
Next question.
Next question's from Jan Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. As a central control noob, is there any place where we can watch use cases for CC? And separately, are there any demo options?
Yeah, there is. We're always posting case studies on our socials, most of which come from Jeff. There's loads of videos on YouTube that customers have made about what they're doing with the software. The Facebook group's another great place for that. In terms of demo, both Core and Studio both have a 30-day completely unrestricted demo. Do whatever you like with it. Yeah.
That's great. Next question.
David Brady in New York City asks, what is the resource footprint for Core? Can it run side by side on other studio computers, or should it be dedicated to a task proposed machine?
I think, if you have the luxury of a task proposed machine, that's always the way to do it right. But in terms of I'd say yes. Core, I think you're very unlikely to have any kind of issue because it's only the simple control stuff that we're doing. The Windows application where you can start doing stuff like teleprompters and add as many of those as you want, and we start using, NVIDIA encoders for the streaming stuff, that's where it's like, okay, this definitely needs to be its own machine. But I'd be surprised if you had any issues with overloading a production system with Core. It's very lean.
Is something you can put on like a little like PC like this? Yeah, is this the...
Jeff's got one. I believe someone's done it.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead. Oh, you were going to show
mute button. Yeah. Sorry, I had to put my right hand down. This is a single board computer. It was a whopping $125.
Right.
It has a Celeron processor inside it. I bought the case. It was an extra $15. So stuck it inside the little case, but it runs Windows. It'll eventually run Linux, and once Core is ported over to Linux, which is I think next week, right? Once that's done, then we'll have the ability just to have a throwdown box, send it out with a controller, and we're set and ready to go. All remote controlled.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, I'm very impressed by your NDI Bridge demo. How are you transporting keyboard mouse data over? How are you transporting keyboard and mouse data, and what is the server app on the other end sharing the screen?
Okay. Yeah, no, great question. So we are not transporting the screen nor keyboard and mouse. What we're doing is essentially providing a way for you to link in remote controllers. So we're sending our own protocol over if you would like to know, over the NDI metadata channel. And the server on the other end it's just central control on both sides. There's really nothing else required unless you want to go over WAN. Then I guess you just need to have an NDI bridge running somewhere. But no, it's simply like our own protocol going over NDI, and it will, because of that, it'll work over any kind of intermediaries you have as well. Like Sienna NDI Cloud will work as well in theory.
And just so we don't miss it here, what is the cost and how does the licensing work?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So there's a few different options. Now's probably a good time to look at the screen share. So we've got Core, which is, if you like, the entry level, but also the only cross-platform product that is on sale, just so you know. Studio and Studio Max are like the Windows application that has all these extra features like Connect, which is our streaming tool, teleprompter, web panel, timeline-based macro system. And then all three that I've just mentioned here, these are perpetual licenses. And then if you'd like all the functionality of Studio Max, the top-end one, but you're not quite ready for a perpetual license, or maybe you just need another one for an event, you can get that as a subscription for $14.99.
I love that business model. Like here's a perpetual solution, but you could also, if you just need to expand or contract for something, or if you're just not ready to commit to that and you're ready to just do a subscription, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's really, really good. And so you would need one of these on like when we talked about talking on both ends, you would need a license for each one of those to talk to each other.
Yeah. And it's actually one of the reasons why, like, existing customers that say, well, I'm very happy with Windows, do I need to buy Core? It's like, well, you don't, but if you want, maybe in a month's time when you maybe want a load of these satellite systems, if you like, now might be a good time to get a license. Yeah,
absolutely. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so in addition to the perpetual licenses, are there upgrade fees when you release new versions? What's the model there? Are there yearly support fees you have to pay to get updates?
Yeah, so in the past, we've typically charged a small upgrade fee for major releases, like if there's big new features. Going forward, it's very likely going to be a yearly, you get free updates for a year, and then there'll be some small amount to essentially renew it. But there's no support fees. Like, I answer emails daily from people that are still running a Central Control 1.4 license that they purchased back in 2020. We're never going to charge a support fee for something we've sold to you.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, I had been using Neo for the PTZ control. Can Core also give me that control?
Yes, certainly. And actually, I have, let's go to camera 2. I actually have on my xKeys here, I've got some control for my PTZ Optics camera. And we support Panasonic on Core. We support PTZ Optics. Give me a name. IDA, and we've also got NDI control, which is pretty much any recent PTZ camera will have NDI PTZ control.
Next question.
Another one for me, are there audio meters in Core? For example, can it display the audio levels from devices like the ATEM Mini or digital mixers that are supported?
Yes, audio meters are supported. So like, I can't remember who was holding up an X-Touch earlier, but they've got the VU meters on the surface. That is supported in Core. I believe
now, is that
Core,
passing the data or is it actually displaying the data?
It displays the VU meter data we receive from the device. I will say I don't believe that's in the ATEM module just yet, but it is in a lot of the others like vMix, I think the X32 module. So there's no reason we couldn't add it to the ATEM module. It's just a question of finding the time.
With the ATEM module, are you using strictly the SDK, or are you going a little deeper?
This is a really good question. And to that end, there are actually 2 ATEM modules in Central Control at the moment. On Windows, we do use the SDK because it's easier to develop with. On Core, because we can't use the Windows SDK, and it would be very tricky to try and use the Mac SDK at the same time, and notwithstanding we also want to run on Linux, which there isn't yet an SDK for. We are using another library to control the ATEM, so that's why those modules are slightly different in their capability, but I'm trying to get the core ATEM module up to the same standard as the SDK based Windows one.
Are you able to do the animations for the super sources with just the SDK?
Yes, both the SDK version and the core version both have SuperSource Animator.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas asks, can you do a future show showing the Windows version of Core?
Well, I think it's pretty much the same, isn't it? I mean, there's not, for Core, the studio might be different, but Core is the same across both, right?
Yeah. Studio certainly got some very interesting bits about it, but I don't think we've managed to get an hour in addition to this over the Windows version of Core, because like you say, Alex, it's by design the same program.
Next question.
Next question is from Zach Stolthmus in Chautauqua, New York. I need to sell using Core to the higher-ups, aka check writers. What would be a good elevator speech to convince them to purchase a Core license?
Sure. Zach, I believe you're already a Central Control user. So coming at it from that angle, I'd say the best reason to buy a Core license or licenses right now would be to use them in the future as satellite stations for Central Control Link, which is the functionality I just showed where you can share your controllers over NDI. If you're not already a customer, I'd say it's an excellent time to buy a license, because you're getting more capability than our old entry-level products at a very low cost.
Next question.
Next question is from Jason Bache in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What's the name of your upcoming xKeys collaboration running on the xKeys unit? Is it too early to ask how much it will cost when it's released?
It is called the xKeys production controller. I believe it will be released in the next month or so. There's quite a bit of work to releasing such a product. The cost I couldn't say for certain now, but I believe it's in the region of $1,200.
Cool. Can't wait to see it. Maybe we'll get you back on to show it to us once you have it rolling. We're definitely interested. Next question.
David Barton in Memphis, Tennessee asks, would CC be a good alternative to the established home automation and AV control platforms?
Maybe if you're me. I
prefer to have all DMX lights in my dining room.
Yeah, I will. So I kind of got into the protocol translation bit earlier, and I've got all TP-Link Casa smart bulbs in this house, and I did at one point use the ArtNet input module to take DMX from an MA2 console, and I had every light in the house as a fixture on there. I had a Stream Deck at the front door. I'll be honest with you, David. If you're sensible, no, not really.
Go ahead, Jeff. You have some home uses for it.
I know of one guy actually that used the automation part of that, and I think it may have been with those TP-Link Casa things, and he actually turned his kettle on and off, something like that.
Yeah, I just need I need things that know where take when I'm walking somewhere, and I need you to turn a bunch of things on and make that work. So it's good. Joe, thank you so much for your time. It's really great to have you here. Finally we got you.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you have new updates, definitely let us know. We'll get you scheduled into it because we'd love to have you on and show anything that you're releasing. We're really excited about what you're working on.
Thank you, Alex.
And thanks to our panelists who make this all happen. Such great answers in the first hour and a great discussion in the second hour. Thanks to to all the producers asking the questions. This is a really short show without your questions. So we had questions from I think 3 or 4 different continents today. To pull out all this information. So thank you so much for contributing those questions. Remember that if you put those questions in and we send them back to you at the end of the hour or at the end of the show, you can put them back in on Monday, and we'll get to them. And thank you to the incredible team on the back end. We have a development team that's making all the software work. We have a production team, of course, that's cutting the show. We have a management team that's figuring out who's going to be where and make sure that they're all ready to go. And so we just really appreciate everybody's contribution. And it really takes a small village every single day to make this happen, 7 days a week, 365, sometimes 366 days a year. Now, we traveled 84,000 miles today in the Tlaloc Traversal. That means if we had walked around and asked all those questions one at a time, we would have traveled 84,000 miles. That's 134,000 kilometers, and that is 662 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. That was great, Joe.
Great demo, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah.
Love the super source with the 2-up so we could see what he was doing with the screen share and see his device. That was cool.
Yeah, that worked out well. No, absolutely.
Make sure you send that ATEM back to me.
I know. You can't do a production without that.
Jeff is useless without that.
Yeah, he's got a show
yeah.
that's literally on hold that's supposed to start in a couple hours, and he's like, if I don't have that ATEM, I'm not going to be able to get it done. All right, see you later.